Hi guys, welcome back to Notas Maker. It's Marco here, and today we talk about texture rolling pins by Green Stuff World and us, and how to use them together to create really quickly a ton of interesting bases for your armies. Okay guys, here I'm ready with my main ingredients. I have dust here. This is really something everybody play with as a child, but then we forget how incredible material it is and how useful it can be for our miniature works. It needs only to be perfected just a little for our purposes, and I'll show you how in a second. Just a little note, for this technique you can use a lot of other different materials and products like milliput or green stuff or other putties or hair drying clays. But for this work in particular I need to create 60 bases in a row, plus some extras to have a bit of a backup, and this could become a bit too expensive and tricky if I used something with a really fast drying time like milliput or green stuff. So they are perfectly fine, but for these we don't need all their extra features, and DAS has everything we need for the job, and it's really cheap, so I choose it. I have then the texture rolling pins. I really love these tools. They are super good for gaming bases and scenery for gaming. A little less for more serious creation, for competition models and stuff, but still they are really great and I love them. And as you can see, I have an ever-growing collection in different styles. I want to tell, Green Stuff World is not a sponsor here, really. It's just that I really love using this stuff. And for the end, let's focus a bit. I have my homemade cutting tool in a shape of a 32mm base. It's just aluminum from a soda can wrapped around an umbral pot. It's an umbral enamel pot, and I found it that the measurements are quite good. Super simple, MacGyver style. I prefer to create toppers for bases because when you create the base on top of the actual plastic base, the edges tend to warp and become something like a sphere. So I prefer sharp edges like this. Okay guys, time to start. For this work I needed a bigger surface and something easier to clean at the end of the job. So, for the joy of my girlfriend, I moved into the kitchen. Really a joyful moment. I also had to change my DAS using the terracotta version, the red one, just because the white version messed up with the white balance of my camera. But really they are 100% the same stuff, just in a different color. So, put on a pair of gloves and in a container start to mix DAS and PVA glue.
He slimed me.
This is the most important step in the entire process, really. DAS in fact lacks a lot of elasticity, and this could be a great problem in every step of the process. During the drying time, especially in hot and dry conditions, and I learned it really well when I was still in Italy, this causes cracks and a lot of unwanted warping. And when it's dry, it can be fragile, especially in the thickness we are looking for here for making bases. Adding PVA, we are adding a crazy amount of elasticity, resistance to internal and external stress, and a lot of mass and density that at the end will transform the dust in something really similar to an epoxy putty. So, really important step.
Oh, my love, my darling.
The quantity of PVA to use could be tricky to tell, I can tell you really precisely. I don't have a proper system to dose it, but I can understand it from the consistency, and you'll see what I mean in a sec. But really, you don't need too much stuff even with this big amount of dust, just a bit. I'm a bit exaggerating here. As you can see here, I messed up a bit with the dose of PVA, but it's easy to solve the problem adding just a bit more of dust. And at the end, this was a good thing because I underestimated a little the quantity needed for all the bases and the backups, so I was lucky here. The consistency we are looking for is something soft, playable, quite elastic and a bit sticky. Really similar to a bread or better a dough pizza. If you are like me and you are really terrible doing this step, use the help of a good and very patient woman. Really patient. And start to flatten your dough. You can use parchment paper to avoid extra mess and stuff to clean and the general stickiness of the dough itself. One of the awesome things of dust is that you can smooth it out with simple water. So between steps, if you need to flatten or perfect the surface, just use simple water on the top and you are good to go. When you have your ideal thickness, it's finally time for the texture rolling pin. Super simple process here, nothing tricky, nothing difficult. Wet a little the surface of the rolling pin and with a steady motion and a steady pressure, give your dust a beautiful texture. And now with your homemade tool, taken directly from MacGyver's collection, you need only to cut the shape of the bases. Try to do a sharp and precise edge to perfectly separate the base from the extra material all around. Don't worry too much if in this phase the surface is not perfectly flat. Everything will settle by itself, and during the drying time you can adjust these little kind of movements and eventual warping just pressing with your finger. Simple like that. Don't worry too much now. So guys, for some reason the camera didn't take the footage of me peeling off the excess material all around the bases, but it's not a big deal. It was something really simple and a bit boring, and I used just a knife to remove all around the excess, and I made a new dough for another batch of bases, so really simple, really basic. This is the result after one night of drying time. Here in Ireland the drying times are a bit longer than in Italy, so you have still a bit of humidity here on top, and you can see it especially on the bottom. There is a darker area here in the center, so check before you go on with the steps. And the edges are still a bit rough, but I have to sand everything when the bases will be on the proper base to get the perfect fit. The great thing of adding PVA glue to the dust, mixing them together, is that you gain this kind of elasticity even when the base is fully dried. So you don't have cracks, you don't have any damage during the drying time. You can pose the base if there is a bit of warping, and this is a great strength against any kind of stress if you get this kind of mobility against heats and stress in general. At the end I probably used too much dust because I ended up with more than 100 bases and I needed only 60, but still it's a good thing because I was able to choose the best ones between them, and it's always good to have an excess of production to be able to choose your best results. Okay, now everything is dry and really super strong but still elastic, and I need only to glue the two parts together with my fluid super glue, working in assembly line to save some time. Now everything is glued together, super easy, fast and nice job. But the toppers, by design, are a bit larger than the actual upper surface of the base, and the edges are still quite rough. So I'm going to use my rotary tool to smooth the edges and to blend the topper with the actual base, keeping a bit of attention to maintain the same angle of the base itself, to really blend the two pieces together. Thanks to the glue and to the rotary tool, everything will be one single piece in a matter of minutes. Time for a big secret. Here's my solution to the dust problem of this kind of works. I just stick my Hoover with some duct tape to the table. It's a bit MacGyverish, but if it works. Finally, here we are at the last stage, and excluding the 48 hours of drying time, usually it's less really, but Ireland is not forgiving on this step. It took me in total something like 3 hours to get to the point where I was able to pin the models on their bases. So, in general, not too shabby for 60 miniatures with this kind of level of detail on their bases. If you like this video, give it a like, hit the subscribe button, and remember, you can always ask me anything down below in the comments.